Lucifera. Introducing Diana Lucifera. Diana is a goddess in Roman and Hellenistic religion, primarily considered a patroness of the countryside, hunters, crossroads, and the moon.
Welcome to the show, please settle in.
Diana is equated with the Greek goddess Artemis, and absorbed much of Artemis mythology early in Roman history, including a birth on the island of Delos to parents Jupiter and Latona, and a twin brother, Apollo, though she had an independent origin in Italy.
Interesting fact, Diana had also an independent origin in Italy, where she was known as Diana Nemorensis, also known as Diana of the Woods, with a sanctuary in the Italian city of Nemi. Diana of the Woods was Hellenized during the 4th century, before Common Era. Diana is a triple goddess. Diana was often considered an aspect of a triple goddess, known as Diana Triformis, Diana, Luna, and Hecate. At Diana's sacred wood on the shores of Lake Nemi, Diana was venerated as a triple goddess beginning in the late 6th century, before Common Era. The book titled, Contributions to the Knowledge of the Indo-European Languages, 1896, gives us an interesting analogy between some gods and the use of the word, Lucifera, next to their names.
You gotta stop being so naive. Your government is corrupt with corporate greed. We got serpents in the White House, serpents in the Congress, serpents in the Vatican, and snakes will snake you. May I suggest you wake up and smell the bloodshed? It's genocide, hurry up and repent. May I suggest you wake up and smell the bloodshed? It's genocide, hurry up and repent.
The Roman erudite Marcus Tullius Cicero stated in his work on the nature of the gods, that the goddess Diana was also called as Diana Lucifera.
Welcome to the show, please settle in. Make yourself at home, please settle in.
In Greek, the women in labor used to invoke Diana Lucifera. There are many books that mentions Diana Lucifera also as the Illuminatrix or Mary Lucifer. This is some possible Gnostic Templar distortion of Saint Mary Magdalene. If you want to search more, please go to your favorite library or search in Google Books using the following phrases: Lucifera Dea, Mary Lucifer, the Illuminatrix, Diana Lucifera, Luna Lucifera, and also Diana Triformis. Conclusion. In one of our past videos, please search Lucifer, the mistranslation that changed it all. We stated that Saint Jerome mistakenly translated the name Hallel ben Sahar as the morning star. But based on the name Diana Lucifera and all the cult that was done to this goddess, maybe this so-called mistranslation would not be a mistranslation at all. We do consider it as some sort of a syncretism hint more than a mistranslation itself. Please take into consideration that talking about Diana Lucifera is the same as talking about of Isis, Astarte, Ishtar, and many of the mother goddesses across the history. But maybe a mistranslation of Saint Jerome that should be considered more relevant for Christians than the word Lucifer itself would be the fact that he somehow conflated the Estela Maris title with Saint Mary, the mother of Jesus, on his translation of Eusebius Onomasticon.
You've likely heard the story of Lucifer, the fallen angel. According to Christian legend, Lucifer was the most senior and most beautiful angel in God's heavenly court. He wanted to be more powerful than God and rebelled along with some other corrupted angels. After an ensuing heavenly war, Lucifer and other angels were banished from heaven and descended all the way down to hell. Lucifer, now a fallen angel, became the devil. His fellow fallen angels became demons. Okay, with me so far? Good. The story you've just heard is not in the Bible. Well, at least not in the way it's often told. The real origin of Lucifer is a lot more interesting. It's actually one of misinformation, conflation, and one very curious mistranslation. Let me explain. Before we get into wars in heaven, fallen angels and hellfire, let's start with his name, Lucifer. It's just one of many names used for the devil, like Satan and the beast, and those names are used quite a lot of times in the Bible, but only once is the name Lucifer ever mentioned, and that's in the Old Testament's book of Isaiah. In chapter 14 verse 12 of the book, the prophet Isaiah says this: "How you are fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning! How you are cut down to the ground, you who weakened the nations." Even though the name Lucifer is mentioned, this taunting remark is actually directed towards the arrogant king of Babylon, whose kingdom had just been destroyed. Isaiah is basically teasing him for it. So, "How you fallen, O Lucifer, son of the morning," kind of just means, "King of Babylon, oh look how the mighty have fallen." But why did Isaiah need to call him Lucifer? What's Satan got to do with any of this? Well, you might say, Lucifer was ungraciously cast down from heaven as well. So, likening the king of Babylon to Lucifer is actually a pretty good comparison here. And yes, you would be right. But the thing is, if you examine the text in its original language, Isaiah was never really making this comparison in the first place. When we read the same text in its original language, Biblical Hebrew, Isaiah's taunt actually sounds a bit like this: Ek napalta mishamayim helel ben shachar, nigdata la'aretz cha'olesh al goyim. Did you hear me say the word Lucifer? No. Nowhere does the real Isaiah actually say this name. Instead of being called Lucifer, the king of Babylon is called Helel ben Shachar, literally a shining one, son of morning. In Hebrew, a shining one, son of morning, does not refer to Satan or the devil, but a planet, the planet Venus, otherwise known as the morning star. Besides the moon, Venus is the brightest body in the night sky, and because it's so bright, it's often the first star that can be seen in the evening, and the last star you can see when the sun comes up. Hence the name, the morning star, or in Hebrew, shining one, son of morning, Helel ben Shachar. So back to Isaiah's taunt about the morning star, and it all begins to make sense if applied to the planet Venus. By describing the king of Babylon as, O shining one, son of morning, Isaiah is likening the king's epic fall from grace to the movement of the morning star, which every morning appears to fall from the sky into the underworld. In the Sumerian religions of ancient Iraq, the goddess Inanna was associated with the planet Venus. There are several hymns of praise to Inanna in her role as the goddess of the planet, but a particularly famous hymn, Inanna's Descent to the Underworld, describes how, unlike any other deity, Inanna is able to fall from heaven, descend into the netherworld, and rise back the next day, just like the planet Venus does every dusk and dawn. We've established that Isaiah is actually talking about the movements of the morning star, the planet Venus. But how on earth did it become Lucifer? Well, once the Bible was translated to Latin by early Christians, they came across Isaiah 14:12 and translated the Hebrew word for morning star into their own word for morning star, Lucifer. Lucifer is a Latin word for morning star, with the word literally translating to light bringer. In Greco-Roman myth, the morning star was often personified and considered a god, and in some myths, considered to be the son of Aurora, the dawn. How did the morning star, Lucifer, aka Venus, turn so evil, and where do the fallen angels come in? To thank for that, you have the Book of Enoch. It's an apocryphal biblical text written around 300 to 200 BCE, and it didn't quite make it into the final cut of the Bible, but was incredibly popular in Second Temple Judaism. In the Book of Enoch, there's a chapter called the Book of Watchers. And in this chapter, we have the Watchers, who were dispatched to Earth to watch over humanity. But they did a terrible, terrible job, and they soon began to lust for human women. and, led by their leader Samyaza, all started to defect from God's command and began to procreate among human women. The offspring are called the Nephilim, or giants, who pillaged the earth and endangered humanity. Samyaza and his fallen angel cronies also began to teach the humans certain forbidden arts, like weaponry, cosmetics, mirrors, sorceries, and other hidden secrets. Meanwhile, God's looking down in anger and disbelief, so allows a great flood to rid the earth of the corrupted humankind and those Nephilim, but first warning Noah to build his ark, as described in the book of Genesis. Afterwards, he gets his loyal angels to punish the fallen watchers, including their evil leader, Samyaza. Remember, none of this is actually canon for mainstream Christianity or Judaism. It's labelled as an apocryphal book. In today's terms, that's the equivalent of being a sort of Bible fan fiction. But at the time, people loved the Book of Enoch so much that it began to influence contemporary religious ideas. Even in the New Testament book of Jude, the Book of Enoch is directly quoted. Around the time of Enoch's circulation, Jews and early Christians rummaged through the Old Testament to see if they'd missed any hidden secrets, and they just so happened to stumble on a little verse in the book of Isaiah. Instead of seeing it as a reference to the planet Venus as originally intended, they found a hidden reference to that fallen angel Samyaza as seen in the book of Enoch. And when early Christians read Isaiah in Latin, they came to understand Lucifer not as Lightbringer, but as a name for a fallen angel. And so, Lucifer, the name for the fallen angel, finally stuck, and was added to a growing number of names used for the devil, such as Satan, the beast, Beelzebub, and so on. Now each one of those names have their own fascinating origins that I'd love to cover in a future video, but for now I'll leave it at that. And that is as close of an origin story to Lucifer as we can get. It's a story of how a planet accidentally became a fallen angel. Today's Bibles no longer use Lucifer in their translations, and instead use Morning Star in Isaiah 14:12. The story of how Lucifer got his name is such a rabbit hole, so I recommend to explore the topic yourself. As with all my videos, I provided links down below. If you're new here, why not subscribe? I have a series of videos on my channel that might interest you. Anyway, I look forward to seeing you again for my next video. Goodbye.
Well, I asked Dana before she went to Australia, 2 or 3 days before, because I thought it'd be a good idea that, apart from anything else, if she went to Australia, she could then think about it, and if she didn't like the idea, she could say she didn't, or if she did, she could say that. But in fact, you actually said
yes, quite promptly.
Before you went to Australia?
Yes.
They were to sit on it for 3 weeks.
Do you find it a very daunting experience that yesterday you were a nanny looking after children, now you're about to marry the Prince of Wales, and one day you would, in all likelihood, be Queen? It's a tremendous change for someone, if I may say, of 19 to make all of a sudden, the transition.
It is, but I've had a small run up to it all in the last 6 months. And next to Prince Charles, I know I can't go wrong. He's there with me.
I mean, I've got this house in Gloucestershire, which I acquired last year.
With marriage in mind?
No, not really. I mean, I did want somewhere very much as a base, and I wanted somewhere which was nearer to the Duchy of Cornwall areas that I could reach then and visit people and look at the farms and things. And so that was very convenient. But obviously, it's been a great help. There's a lot to be done. It's going to be marvellous to have somebody to help sort it out.
It was 1977. Prince Charles came to stay as a friend of my sister Sarah's for a shoot. We sort of met in a ploughed field.
I was slightly previous to that, but I know.
And what did you think then? What was your instant impression, both of you? What did you think about Lady Diana?
Well, I remember thinking what a very jolly and amusing and attractive 16-year-old she was. And, I mean, great fun, and bouncy and full of life and everything. And I don't know what you thought of me. But
Pretty amazing.
Did it cross either of your minds that in 3 years' time you would be announcing your engagement, thinking of getting married?
No.
No.
Towards the end of the summer and the autumn last year, and I began to realise, what was going on in my mind and hers in particular, and all these things help. But it was a gradual business.
I had a long time to think about it because I knew the pressure was on both of us, and it wasn't a difficult decision in the end. It's what I wanted. It's what I want. Wonderful sapphire endowment.
When were you given that? Just last night? Or?
No, Sunday.
And when did you tell the Queen that this was what you wanted to do?
Well, about 3 weeks ago. So, as I say, we've had to sit on it and hide it for 3 weeks, which hasn't been all that easy. But I was absolutely determined that it was going to be as near a secret as possible on the actual day. That was my ambition. There was a lot to be decided, but when is probably in the latter half of July, I should think. It's I think, quite a useful time from all sorts of different reasons. And the actual place will be decided.
Honeymoon plans, or is that something you have to talk about now it's official?
Well, we've had vague discussions about it, but a lot depends on, what happens now. There are lots of different alternatives, and the difficulty is to go somewhere where one can actually get away from everything else.
Yes. You're now going to be separated again because you're going to Australia, New Zealand.
Yes.
And you'll be away, 5-6 weeks? Something like that.
Yes.
What are you going to do in the meantime?
Oh, don't worry, Ash, we're very busy.
Not back to the nursery and not back to flat sharing, presumably.
Nope.
You've moved to your accommodation.
I've been moving all over the place, I think.
Trying to keep away from it.
Possibly, yes.
But you sort of made a little grimace there, as if you rather like flat sharing, and that is something.
No, I
you're giving
was
up.
referring to the children. I'm going to miss them.
You miss looking after the children.
Yes.
Well, they certainly miss you, won't they?
Hope so.
Have you been to see them?
Difficult to find the right sort of word, isn't it, really? Just delighted and happy. And I'm amazed that she's been brave enough to take me on.
And I suppose in love.
Of course.
Whatever in love means.
Yes.
Well, it
You can put your own interpretation.
Obviously means two very happy people.
Yes.
Once
As you
again,
can see.
congratulations.
Well, from us, congratulations.
Thank you
Thank
very
you
much.
very much. It's very kind.
Have you ever considered how the moon has influenced human history and culture? Join us as we explore the moon goddess Diana and her journey from Rome to Greece and throughout the ancient world. Even after her death, her name hallowed with spiritual power. She as a giant and brought knowledge to the ancient peoples of the world. In Roman mythology, Diana is a prominent figure. Born from the union of Jupiter, Nephilim king of the Roman pantheon, and Latona, a first-generation Anunnaki titaness who born the planets above, and later humanity, Diana was destined to rule the celestial moon of Earth. Diana was a symbol of freedom, a protector of women and a patroness of hunting and gathering in the ancient world. Diana took on a role similar to her Greek counterpart Artemis. It is widely known that in those days, a fallen entity would rule over a city for many generations, and their name would become powerful. In the Bible, there were people who lived almost 1,000 years. It's conceivable that Diana was of the fallen bloodline, and was eventually called other names in Greece, Asia Minor, and Persian territories. Artemis of Greece is adorned with identical aspects of expertise, hunting and agriculture. Diana is the bloodline of a primordial titan, creation era, and a regular god, of high Nephilim origin as a giantess, denoting Anunnaki and later Nephilim heritage going back 250,000 years in her worship as a god. Hunting and planting are pure survival. In Artemis, it was animal husbandry of small herds, foraging and chastity of women as wealth. This was a new interpretation of Diana to those in that region. As Diana's influence spread, her worship took root in Ephesus. a thriving city in what is now modern-day Turkey. Here Diana took on a new facet, the goddess of prosperity. Hunting, chasing of game, breeding, planting, foraging, and the ancient concept of trading goods and services. It all made sense that Diana became source of spiritual worship in order to align with wealth and power. Ephesus, as referenced in Ephesians of the Holy Bible, was the financial capital of the world in those times. They not only had trade of goods and services, they had the economic engine of global survival in Diana as a patron deity. The people of Ephesus, blessed with wealth and abundance, attributed their fortune to Diana, who they believe showered them with divine favor. There was proof of her power throughout the ancient world. Interestingly, Diana's story intertwines with the narratives of the Holy Bible, the gaining of wealth and the parting with it. In the book of Acts, we find a reference to Diana's enormous influence in Ephesus. The city, a key financial hub of the ancient world, was home to the Temple of Diana, which is one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. One story involving Diana comes from a tale of a wealthy couple named Ananias and Sapphira, who lied to the disciples of Jesus in the church at Ephesus. The story of Sapphira is found in the Acts of the Holy Bible, chapter 5. Sapphira and her husband Ananias were members of the early Christian community who funded the evangelism of sending the gospel around the world to share the good news. The couple sold a piece of property, and with Sapphira's full knowledge, her husband Ananias kept part of the money for himself, but brought the rest and put it at the apostles' feet, pretending it was the full amount. When Peter confronted Ananias about why he lied to the Holy Spirit and kept some of the money, Ananias fell down and died. 3 hours later, Sapphira said yes, repeating the lie when the Spirit of the Holy Ghost told Peter that they were lying. Peter then told her that she was not lying to him, but to God, and she also fell down and died. Jesus was the Christ, a messenger of God. They were Diana worshippers who were not fully believing. Instead of giving to Peter by the help of Diana, she was executed for lying. Looking back, we see that Diana's influence was not limited to mythology or religious practices. She shaped societies, altered the course of history, and left a legacy that echoes to this day. What was done before by our fallen entity ancestors was laid up for the people of Christ when Jesus came. When Jesus came, the role of the Christ was confirmed through the business surrounding him. The first ascended church, with the promise of eternal life. The mandate had been given by the Creator. Many were worshiping Diana, who had long died, and holding back wealth, instead of using the blessing of Diana to elevate Jesus, the messenger of the Creator.
When I started my public life 12 years ago, I understood the media might be interested in what I did, but I was not aware of how overwhelming that attention would become.
It's a global fascination with Diana because there's never been anyone like her before, and there's never been anyone like her since. And I think people are fascinated with the enigma of this woman.
Sweet little child, she's a bit of a tomboy. She didn't like dressing up. I had to take her to a birthday party once when the nanny was off and I couldn't get a dress on her.
What did you think then? What was your instant impression, both of you? What did you think about Lady Diana then?
Well, I remember thinking what a very jolly and amusing and attractive 16-year-old she was. And having great fun and bouncy and full of life and everything. And I don't know what you thought of me. But...
Pretty amazing.
And how was she with them?
She was always happy and outgoing, showed a great sense of humour, and was very relaxed with the children.
And I'm amazed that she's been brave enough to take me on.
And I suppose in love.
Of course.
Whatever in love means.
Well, it
you
obviously
can put your own
means,
interpretation.
Eating disorders, whether it be anorexia or bulimia, show how an individual can turn the nourishment of the body into a painful attack on themselves. Hugging has no harmful side effects. If we all play our part in making our children feel valued, the result will be tremendous. And as a mother of two small boys, I think we may have to find a securer way of helping our children, to nurture and prepare them to face life as stable and confident adults.
I will always look up to her as being, my ideal role model, because everything that she did and the way she did it was having an impact. It was making a difference.
HIV does not make people dangerous to know, so you can shake their hands and give them a hug. Heaven knows they need it.
Diana, remarkably calm, said, to Camilla, look, don't treat me like an idiot. I know what's going on. Now, I knew at this particular point there was only one direction, and that was divorce.
I think the intention really was just to try and tell her story so that the world could understand the real Diana. Because remember, before the book came out, she was just seen as this rather demure and silent clothes horse, this attractive adornment to Prince Charles. And she really wanted to tell her side of the story.
That of all the ironies about Diana, perhaps the greatest was this: a girl given the name of the ancient goddess of hunting was, in the end, the most hunted person of the modern age.
I'm not a political figure, I am a humanitarian figure, and always have been and always will be.
I would say that I always believed the press would kill her in the end. But not even I could imagine that they would take such a direct hand in her death, as seems to be the case. It would appear that every proprietor and editor of every publication that has paid for intrusive and exploitative photographs of her, encouraging greedy and ruthless individuals to risk everything in pursuit of Diana's image, has blood on his hands today.
Princess Anne pays attention to privacy when crossing her legs, but Camilla crossed her legs and almost flashed everyone, which didn't sit well with Charles. A coarse wild boar will never match the elegance of a noble swan. Look, when Camilla walked up the steps, her strides were huge. Honestly, no royal has ever walked that boldly in a short skirt. While waiting to receive flowers, Princess Anne was as poised as ever. But Camilla was her usual fidgety self, looking a bit uneasy. When Princess Anne noticed the two little girls with flowers standing in the wrong spots, she gently helped them switch places. After that, the girl giving flowers to Princess Anne curtsied. But the girl giving flowers to Camilla didn't curtsy. It's worth noting that before sitting down, both Charles and Princess Anne checked their chairs first, but Camilla sat down directly on her scarf. When crossing her legs, Camilla pointed her toes upward, exposing her thighs. In contrast, when Princess Anne crossed her legs, she used her skirt to cover the area above her knees. Princess Anne pays attention to privacy when crossing her legs, but Camilla crossed her legs and almost flashed everyone, which didn't sit well with Charles. A coarse wild boar will never match the elegance of a noble swan. Look, when Camilla walked up the steps, her strides were huge. Honestly, no royal has ever walked that boldly in a short skirt. While waiting to receive flowers, Princess Anne was as poised as ever. But Camilla was her usual fidgety self, looking a bit uneasy. When Princess Anne noticed the two little girls with flowers standing in the wrong spots, she gently helped them switch places. After that, the girl giving flowers to Princess Anne curtsied. But the girl giving flowers to Camilla didn't curtsy. It's worth noting that before sitting down, both Charles and Princess Anne checked their chairs first, but Camilla sat down directly on her scarf. When crossing her legs, Camilla pointed her toes upward, exposing her thighs. In contrast, when Princess Anne crossed her legs, she used her skirt to cover the area above her knees. Princess Anne pays attention to privacy when crossing her legs, but Camilla crossed her legs and almost flashed everyone, which didn't sit well with Charles. A coarse wild boar will never match the elegance of a noble swan. Look, when Camilla walked up the steps, her strides were huge. Honestly, no royal has ever walked that boldly in a short skirt. While waiting to receive flowers, Princess Anne was as poised as ever. But Camilla was her usual fidgety self, looking a bit uneasy. When Princess Anne noticed the two little girls with flowers standing in the wrong spots, she gently helped them switch places. After that, the girl giving flowers to Princess Anne curtsied. But the girl giving flowers to Camilla didn't curtsy. It's worth noting that before sitting down, both Charles and Princess Anne checked their chairs first, but Camilla sat down directly on her scarf. When crossing her legs, Camilla pointed her toes upward, exposing her thighs. In contrast, when Princess Anne crossed her legs, she used her skirt to cover the area above her knees. Princess Anne pays attention to privacy when crossing her legs, but Camilla crossed her legs and almost flashed everyone, which didn't sit well with Charles. A coarse wild boar will never match the elegance of a noble swan. Look, when Camilla walked up the steps, her strides were huge. Honestly, no royal has ever walked that boldly in a short skirt. While waiting to receive flowers, Princess Anne was as poised as ever. But Camilla was her usual fidgety self, looking a bit uneasy. When Princess Anne noticed the two little girls with flowers standing in the wrong spots, she gently helped them switch places. After that, the girl giving flowers to Princess Anne curtsied. But the girl giving flowers to Camilla didn't curtsy. It's worth noting that before sitting down, both Charles and Princess Anne checked their chairs first, but Camilla sat down directly on her scarf. When crossing her legs, Camilla pointed her toes upward, exposing her thighs. In contrast, when Princess Anne crossed her legs, she used her skirt to cover the area above her knees.